presentations, and then we'll have the couple of presentations first, and then a joint Q&A after the 2 presentation rounds. So we should have quite some time for a very good discussion. And from earlier sessions, I know the presentations are going to be epic, but the discussions are also often very good. So please stay along. We promise to not put you in any breakout rooms and being forced to stay together and hear the breakout rooms. So that will be nice. But yeah, prepare some questions. Jot them down. Keep them in mind, or however you do, until the end of the 2 rounds of presentation. For the first rounds of presentations today, we will have Andy Duckett and Sabine Nieder from Amsterdam University of Applied Science, and also members or partner in the EPIC-We project, to talk about empowered participation in culture and games from a research perspective or research perspectives. And that will be followed up by empowered participation in culture and games with youth perspective from EPIC-We Youth Advisory Boards. We have 3 youth advisory boards in the project. We have one in Aarhus, Denmark, and from there M. Hansen is participating. We have one in Hilversum, Netherlands, and from there Lorena Bueno is participating, I hope. Yes, and we have one in Óbidos, Portugal, and from there Maria Costa is participating. So it's quite an epic setup, and I'm really looking forward to this session. Both the discussion and I'm trying to multitask here still. Both the discussion and the presentations. I'm also just putting here in the chat, besides your presentations or introductions, the introduction to Sabine and Andy, before handing over the floor to them and their first presentation. So Sabine Nieder, besides being an EPIC participant in the EPIC-We project, is a professor at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences, where she heads the Visual Methodologies Collective, a transdisciplinary research group of artists, designers, programmers, researchers working on visual, digital, and participatory methods for social and cultural research. She's also one of the coordinators of the Digital Methods Initiative at the University of Amsterdam, with whom she studies the online representation of timely social issues. And with Gabriele Colombo, she wrote the book Visual Methods for Digital Research, which was published by Polity in 2024. And I will, in the chat, of course, share a link to that brilliant book with you all, so you can go and get it. Andy Duckett is art director with the Visual Methodologies Collective at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences, where he designs exhibitions, scenographies, publications, and digital media. He's currently involved in artistic research project around climate change and works closely with researchers to develop participatory and reflexive methods on themes such as urban belonging, sustainability, and games and culture. So that sounds absolutely brilliant, and I'm looking very much forward to being, transformed by art, media, and methods, or something like that. So brilliantly, and the floor is yours, Sabine and Andy. Welcome so much to the EPIC-We Capacity Building Webinar and Workshop Series.
Well, thank you very much, Rike, and no pressure. I feel the pressure after all these kind words. But thank you very much. That's super kind. Andy, maybe could you start sharing our outline at least? Yeah, so today's webinar has a big theme, right? Empowered participation, youth empowerment, empowered youth participation, sorry, through EPIC-We. And we'll try to talk about it through a very small example. So it's a big theme, but we'll go at it from a small perspective, which is a particular component of the research we did or are doing, still ongoing, with EPIC-We, and that is about Voxpop, so interviews, or in the Hilversum Hub way, it's self-interviews for youth participants, for and by youth participants. So maybe to start off with the next slide, yes. And even further, yes, who are we? Maybe a small moment you've seen, well, Rika already sent you our bios. Maybe it's good to just point out that we are part of, we're situated at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences in a faculty of digital media and creative industries, which has a whole wide range of educational programs, ranging from the ICT students to fashion, to communications and multimedia design, some game design, not a lot, a master's in digital design, etc. So it's quite a broad range of creative schools. And it has a rather large research department, and we're one of the research groups there. And the research group we are in is the Visual Methodologies Collective. Maybe next. And I just wanted to briefly introduce that, as Rika already also pointed out, a transdisciplinary research group. And we're specializing in visual, digital, and participatory methods around social and cultural issues. Transdisciplinary because we have, people from many different disciplines at the moment. There's a scenographer, there's a dramaturg, there's a developer, there's a science fiction writer, an architect, media researchers, etc. I'll stop here, but it is not exhaustive yet. And we do not stick to our own disciplines, hence the transdisciplinary. We interfere with each other's work by collaborating closely, and we definitely do not stick to our labels there. The program is divided in 3 thematic lines, which is here. One of them is called Climate Futures, and this is was briefly mentioned in the introduction, a theme where we collaborate with many different schools, organizations, etc., in developing artistic and design-based approaches to imagining and experiencing, of course, already life with a changing climate. So how do you ask, reflect, question what our lives will look like with an ever-changing climate, especially in the Netherlands, of course, where we have sea level rise as a huge threat, and sinking of our own country, rising seas, sinking country, not a great combination. So we are also working nationally with partners here on that topic. But of course, it's not confined to the Netherlands at all. So we work internationally on this as well. And what's nice to mention here maybe, and I'll show a few small examples later, is that we work with cultural collections here too. So we invite artists and designers to reflect on this topic, also using cultural collections, just as Epic We also does. And one of our partners is the Institute for Sound and Vision, who who invited us into the Epic We consortium. So that is already has a longer line of collaboration. So that's one. The other one is senses of belonging. This is a theme on, let's say, local issues, but especially the topic of belonging. So when do you feel you belong somewhere, and why is that the case? So it's also very much about social sustainability in particular sites. And we're developing participatory methods heavily influenced by data feminism and design justice to look at how can you invite people into a project in a caring way. Thirdly, and that's more of a note to self, it's called Making Methods. It's a reminder to ourselves to always share whatever we do, and in as many ways as possible. So we try to share code, methods, practices, materials in many forms for different audiences. Let's look at a few small examples. So Climate Futures is the one theme that is really getting out of hand, because there's a lot of, the consortium is growing, the research program is growing. It started with a very small experiment, really thinking about how can we involve artists in addressing the issue of climate change in more imaginative ways. So away from either only doom and gloom or a lot of, let's say, policy speak, like in more engaging ways, thinking about this. But it has grown, and it has grown and is ever growing. So here's just a small list of things we've been doing in terms of publications, events, the grants we've been collecting, etc. If you're interested in topic, feel free to reach out. I'll press on for now to show you what that could look like. And one of the things we've been doing, for example, our colleague Carlo De Gaetano, who's also part of the Epic We team at the Hilversum Hub, has, for instance, worked with students from communication and multimedia design to start collecting views and visions of the ocean and life with the ocean from TikTok. So students with him create these TikTok collages or other social media collages in really looking at how do people imagine and depict and represent the future of the ocean and the present thereof today. Another example is a work he made working with AI in this case, is really imagining, and this is a beautiful project called Queer as the Ocean, which imagines a future in which humans and aquatic life start looking more, well, maybe become each other, start looking more like each other and start becoming one. And this is a project that has traveled quite a lot to different exhibitions and festivals in the past. Another example of the Senses of Belonging project is Urban Belonging. This is a collaboration with Danish partners, which is also maybe fun to mention here as we have a few Danish partners of our own in Epic We. It's a project that really looked at how can you study belonging and the experience of people inhabiting a city really through the eyes of those living it. So how do you capture and together create tools for capturing the lived experience of people, and in a way that could also inform urban planners, etc. This is a project we've done before. And another example, which is both senses of belonging, but also maybe the making methods one. How do you share research and research practices, and then how do you invite others in? This here is a research station. This is an invention by Andy himself, where it is a moment, this is in a public library. So we have a table set up where we ask people about their, in this case, media consumption, like podcasts, radio stations, etc., in a very lively and multicultural zone of Amsterdam, where a lot of people listen both to, for example, radio and podcast stations from where they used to live or where their family lives, which is sometimes very far away from the Netherlands. And we were very interested in mapping that ecosystem. So, okay, you're based here, but where are you getting your information from? And there are also a lot of local media makers who wanted to know and sort of connect to these, let's say, listening cultures. So we created a research station where we shared how we were researching it and invited people to chime in. And we also hosted workshops there. So here you see some images also of workshops with local media makers there on site. And then lastly, as I said, making methods is mostly our reminder to share methods, practices, and materials in forms. And this can be code in a GitHub, or it can be a research table with all the stuff we're using there, ready to at least look into or have workshops that really inform and engage various publics. So this is just a very quick tour of our research collective. Now, of course, we're here to talk Epic We, and maybe this is a moment, if you could skip to the next one, Andy, to zoom in on a particular method that everyone, like every hub has used in the research, but they've used it in different ways. And this is where Andy finally comes in to maybe give us a tour of what we did and how this method has been evolving and also will be used in the coming game jams. Andy?
Thank you very much, Sabine. It was really nice to see the overview of the work that we've been doing over the past few years as well. So what I would like to do is take the time to go over a little bit about the process of how one of these methods that we've developed, has sort of grown over time and has been part of the Epic We project. It's also benefited a lot from the Epic We structure. So there's a lot that came from the way that the project was formulated to allow for these kind of iterative processes where we could try things out, not be too afraid to experiment, and to have that space to reflect, and also have time to be able to adjust our approaches when we realize that things weren't working out as expected. So I'll go through a little bit about that journey from a personal perspective, and there's others here from the Hilversum Hub. Feel free to chime in if you have anything to add. So what we started with was looking at the research questions of the Epic We project. We realized that it was going to be quite challenging to collect the kind of data that we would need to support any kind of insights around the game jams. And we kind of didn't know what the best approach would be in terms of the time available and what game jam participants would respond best to. But one of the many methods that we thought about, we called the Vox Pop method. And that's basically the Vox Pop interview method, where we design interview questions to try and prompt some kind of personal response from the participants. But in this case, we decided to do it as a self-interview because we'd had some experience in the past. And this comes in a little bit onto today's topic about empowerment. And we'd found in the past that this sort of interview technique can really mark the line between researcher and participant, and that sort of we wanted to really avoid that kind of dichotomy there. So it wasn't like participants versus researchers or anything like that. So what we've aimed to do is to find a way to design methods which kind of challenge that idea a little bit. And we'll go through it now, and we'll see how we did. So this is Beeld & Geluid, the Institute of Sound and Vision in the Netherlands. This is where the game jams and most of the hub meetings take place. And it's a big media museum. It's a fantastic space with interactive exhibits about consumerism, about health, about all kinds of social aspects. So it was a perfect setting for the kind of topics that we're looking at. And so before the game jam, we had a chance to get together and to talk between the different parties in the Hilversum Hub about which kind of data would be most useful, what would be feasible, and we would imagine what kind of data collection methods the youth would respond best to. Now, researchers here would probably see a few red flags there, one of them being the imagine. So we did a lot of imagining what young people would be interested in. And as we went through the project, we had the chance to iterate on those ideas, and we'll come on to that now. So with that in mind, we set up the Vox Pop self-interview method. We made a technical setup and we installed it. We gave time slots to each of the game jam groups. There was 4 groups at the first game jam. And at that point, we decided to include all of the people present in the interview process. So we would have personal insights into what cultural heritage is thinking and doing. What are the creative industry partners doing? What are the researchers thinking? And we got about 10 interviews between 5 and 10 minutes. And this was the setup at the museum. You can see this is the first day when everybody arrived. And I just thought I would share some images because whenever I see images from Obidos or Aarhus, it's like, I don't know, it's like I'm seeing a perspective into a different world because we're doing the same project, but in a practical sense, there hasn't been much overlap. So this is the inside of the museum and some of the interactive exhibits, and also one of the facilitators um, going through some of the materials with one of the participants. And this is where we set up the Vox Pop room. We had a lovely space, which was actually a dressing room, like TV studio dressing room. So we made a small space, and we had these beautiful dressing room mirrors there. So we set up a simple video camera with a simple audio recording device, and we tried to keep it as easy to operate as possible. And for the self-interview, all we did as a method was we made sure that the questions were clearly readable. Each day we had different questions, and that the the time constraints were explained to the participants before they entered, and that they had a clear time slot. And we just basically left the questions as open as possible, uh, trying to prompt responses to how they are feeling within the context of the game jam, or in the case of the Hilversum Hub team members, people from creative industries or from the museum themselves, what are their expectations? So it was kind of very broad and open questions. And this is the kind of material that we were getting, video material from 5 and 10 minutes. And if you look closely on the second image, you can see I've got the same jumper on and the same shirt, but we'll not dwell on that. It was a long time ago. So that we collected the data in the way best we could at the time, and then just to go over it so it's clear, we checked and logged the material straight away, and then we transcribed and pseudonymized the interviews. And then from that point, it was able to go to thematic analysis, which was a really great process because from then, just then we realized what we could say the thickness of the data was so good that I guess we start to realize the real potential of this as a method in this context. Because we could then use the same data that we collected for a specific purpose, it started to find other purposes across the project. So from something that was going to be used in a very reduced way, we realized that the testimonies from the young people, it was the only place that we were getting this reflexivity that we were looking for in all the methods that we'd tried. This one was by far the most insightful. And from those insights from the first game jam and across the other hubs, we then went on to rectify a big missing link at the beginning, which was include the youth in the decision-making process of the project, which I'm sure we'll touch on again later on in the presentations. So we started to formulate our version of the Youth Advisory Board after Game Jam 1 with the participation of some of the participants from the first Game Jam. So that allowed us to ask questions specifically if the Vox Pop method had been carried out in a way that was in line with what the ethos of the game jam for the young people, wasn't interrupting them too much during the day. They didn't have any major issues with being on camera, etc. And so some of our assumptions from the beginning were confirmed and some of them were contradicted. And this is a view of some of the kind of data that we were collecting. I just thought I'd put this in there so we could see the format that we would pass the data around. And that gave us a chance to then adapt the same method for the second game jam. And it meant taking on board the youth advisory input. From what we'd learned, we reworded the interview questions. The second game jam was in a school, so we had to kind of see those challenges. And going on to game jam 3, where the main difference now is that we're going to have the questions available way before the game jam begins. So we're going to publish them in the game jam instruction booklets, the game jam guides, so the participants can have an idea of what's coming. But that was basically our experience with the Vox Pop method. And of course, any questions that you have later on, I'll be happy to answer about the challenges that we faced and what worked and what didn't work.
Thank you so much, Andy. And while we move slightly slowly over to the next session, please, and I'm trying to multitask here. Please jot down any questions you have for the first speakers, for Sabine and Andy, like I did here on my paper, and then we'll take them and bring them into the Q&A session. But before we do that, we will move from, I don't know, it's methods for the people, I don't know, methods by the people, I don't know how to bridge this, but over to Maria, Lorena, and Em, and I also just posted their presentations in the chat. I don't know if that's the right order, but let's see. Each representing youth perspectives from each of the hubs, and perhaps they also have questions for Andy and Sabine in the end. Andy and Sabine perhaps have questions for them, so we'll have a lively debate, hopefully. First is Maria Costa, who is a PhD student in informatics and a researcher currently working under a research grant at Lusofona University, one of the partners in the EPIC-V project, focusing on the integration of virtual reality and eye tracking technologies. She obtained a bachelor degree in computer engineering from İşte in 2019 and completed her master's degree at the same institution in 2024 with the thesis A Serious Game to Increase Children's Knowledge about the Vital Role of Sharks in Marine Ecosystems. So as part of her academic journey, she participated also in an Erasmus program at Universitat Politecnica di Catalunya. I hope I said that kind of correctly. And her research interest again centers on the use of VR. And then we have Lorena Bueno as a Brazilian concept artist and illustrator who specializes in storytelling and cute-looking designs. Graduated from Lusofona University with a diploma in visual arts in 2025. Spent a year studying fine art and design at London College of Contemporary Arts. And played a role in creating Grapple Pause, a game made for a Christmas game jam. Oh, I already missed Christmas. Perhaps we can see some Christmassy spirit. I don't know. And then Em Hansen, who is currently a research assistant at Aarhus University, also been at Filmby Aarhus, also participated in one of the game jams, works with diversity and inclusions within EPIC-V, hold a master's in aesthetic and culture, and have specialized in the intersection between queer theory, inclusion and diversity, and the creative video game industry. They have first-hand experience because participated in the game jams and been around and traveling around the cultural hub in Aarhus, you could say, and are now building bridges also between the Youth Advisory Board in Aarhus and the different partners in the Helix there. So really looking forward to these next 3 presentations. They have around 10 minutes each. Please jot down your questions, share in the chat any resources and thoughts and reflections you might have that pop up during the presentations, and then we'll bring them to the table in the end. But first of all, an epic welcome, I would say, to Maria, Lorena, and Em. The floor is yours.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I'll start then. I can share my screen. Are you seeing it well now?
Yeah, thank you. That's perfect, Maria.
Okay, I'll start then. So my name is Maria Costa. I'm 23 years old. I've done my bachelor and master's degree in ISCTE, which is an institution here in Lisbon. I also did an Erasmus at Universitat de Catalunya in Barcelona last year during the first semester of the second year and the first semester of my master's degree. I'm currently a PhD student in computer science at Lusofne. I'm also a researcher in a lab here, which focuses on psychology and technology together. And I'm also now part of the Youth Advisory Board for about a month. So my experience isn't too deep, but I'll try to sum what I can tell about from this past month. So I've participated in a game jam at the 6th International Summer School on AI and Games last year during June, and we actually ended up winning first place. I also have an international group of friends due to the Erasmus. Mostly of them are from Europe, but I also have from other continents. And I'm also very chronically online, which can contribute to having knowledge about what's going on in the world, as well as the perspective of youth that mostly uses these technologies. My concerns are very focused on gender inclusivity within the game community, which since I started my bachelor's degree, I've noticed quite a lot. There's a sort of disproportion in terms of male versus females within the game industry. I also am very focused, especially in my research, about the declining of sharks population, which throughout the last years has been huge numbers, around 100 million die a year and 11,000 die per hour. It's very alarming numbers that many people are not aware of. My initial expectations about this project was I was initially asked to apply. I didn't really know much about the project. I know it had to do with some game jams, but I really didn't know the deep ends of it. And I was also curious about how could I contribute to the project in order to make it slightly better or even significantly better. The first meeting that we had a diverse group of people. We talked about our concerns and we discussed about how to solve them. And we also formed very valuable conversations about how to solve them. And we discussed multiple aspects about those concerns that we had. For example, one was about the climate change, which is a topic very dear to all of us nowadays. And my overall experience was that throughout these discussions, we could have pleasant discussions without ending up going over one another. We were all very respectful of each other's opinions, and we could talk openly about many problems. This led to possible solutions and even, again, significant discussions about how could we solve them and which other way could we try to get to the solution. As I said before, by talking to people with different backgrounds, which we're all from, led to significant conversations that usually don't happen in other contexts. And it was very interesting to have the ability of debating without feeling, for example, judged by an opinion, which I felt like we all did quite express our honest opinions without having that fear. And I don't have much more to say. As I said before, I'm in the project for about a month. We only had a meeting until now, but I do think this project is very important. And at least in the one meeting that we had, I felt a very fulfilled needed to discuss. And I do think we made it and we found some possible solutions to some problems that I've never thought about before. And I think it's very enriching and I'm very much enjoying it until now. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you.
And I'm sure people will have lots of questions, so hold tight to those questions. And now I'll give the floor to Lorena.
Hello, Good evening, and thank you so much to Andy and Sabine and for sharing your work and what you're working on. It was really, truly an amazing thing just to hear about the project. And I also wanted to ask later some questions about it. And thank you so much, Maria, for sharing your experience until now. And I'll be sharing my screen now. Can you see the screen?
Not yet, Luana.
Not yet. Okay.
Yes, it's going into screen sharing mode. Yes, and we see it, but not in presenter view.
Not what?
Perfect.
Sorry.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So my name is Lorena Bueno. At the moment, I am working with the Youth Advisory Board at Epic Week with Maria and all of the other participants as well. I have a degree in visual arts from the Lusophone University, and I leave my contact below, but I also leave all of the information in the comments in the conversation. So in the chat, sorry. So you can later see some of my work because I'm sharing my website as well, which showcases some of the artistic work that I work on. So I am 22 years old. I am half Brazilian. I was born in Portugal and I also have a Spanish passport. So I have a lot of identities, if I may say. And I also lived in Brazil as well as I lived in Portugal for a really long time. I also lived in Slovakia and England. So I believe that I had a chance of meeting a lot of different people and also having the chance of speaking a lot of different languages really changes your head, if I may say. So I am a 2D digital concept artist and illustrator. I usually work on Clip Studio and Procreate, and I just got a degree in visual arts from the Lusophone University. And I also took some subjects from the animation and fashion course, which I was completely interested in because I felt that I could also get some experience from other sectors that would enrich my experience at the university. So I took character design, illustration, fashion design, and 3D animation on Maya. I also worked for 3 years at the Max CCB Museum of Contemporary Arts, which is located in Belém, in Lisbon, which um, gave me a lot of experience in working at events, which would sorry, where we could get in contact with artists and see what they were worried about and talking about at the moment, because we had a lot of temporary exhibitions as well that were super interesting. And I was also able to help people that would come to the museum and talk about the arts, talk about what I was interested in, which was a really enriching experience overall to work at the museum, I believe. And this year I am starting a master in game design at Rasus, which is a school in Madrid, called Escuela Superior de Artes Digitales. So that's a really exciting experience for me because I will be learning more about programming and animation and modeling in general, so I can go deeper into the creation of video games. The game that I created for the game jam that I mentioned in my bio was Grapple Paws, which is a really cute game which we created in around 7 days. We started 7 days before Christmas, so it was basically a present when we presented the game because we had to finish it by the 24th of December of last year. And it was a really exciting experience. We had a team of around 7 people, and we did all of the work online, which was very interesting. And it was my first game jam. And basically, the game was made on Unity. I worked on the sprite animations, the vignettes, the all of the character designs and concept art for the characters and everything basically that was happening visually in the game, I took part on. And I also will leave the link in the chat so you guys can play if you're interested in. And after all, the game received the fourth place overall and ninth place in visual design, and it was participating against 135 submissions. So it was a lot of people working on different games. And we had to play all of the other ones as well and vote, which was really nice. So some of the expectations that I have with the game jam that we're participating in and working as youth advisors is that I believe that the experience overall will help me gain insight into programming, sound, and other roles that I'm not exactly expert in or have not much information in, which is really exciting for me because then I can see how other people work, how their thought process is like in their creative process. And other aspects is that I would like to help all of the students and all of the young people that are having issues with storytelling or artistic issues. We have a colleague Henrique, which he helped in the last game jam, and he said that he was basically volunteering and helping the other young people, which was really interesting because I'm really excited to do that. I'm really excited to take a part and maybe help them when they need it and are working with a really small deadline. So that would be interesting. I'd also like to maybe help with people who have problems with social issues and maybe have difficulties making friends or talking or just problems with their insecurities. So I would like to help um, creating a safe space for them so they can engage and be able to create better games. I'll also like to expand my work and network and find people who are also interested in the things that I am when it comes to gaming, the games that I'm interested in. I'm usually interested in games that usually focus on really good and well-made storytelling and deeply made characters. And I would also like to meet people that I can work on projects with. And I'm completely open as well if anyone in the chat that is working on a new project. I'm also interested in taking a part of that if I can. And overall, I would just like to enjoy the process of gaming while I'm mentoring and testing people's games, seeing what they're working on, what how they can create something new and exciting. And I'm just excited overall for the whole process of the game jam, going to Óbidos, which is a beautiful place. Everyone knows that. And overall, I'm just excited and I would like to thank you for the experience.
Thank you, Lorena, and looking forward to learn much more about you and youth empowerment. And while giving the floor to our last speaker before the Q&A, just to have a question simmering in the back of our mind, I would be really interested in learning more about, in the context of game jams and joining a research innovation project such as EPIC-RE, what has actually been most empowering so far to you, all of you. But before answering that, then you can panic on the inside of your mind until M has done their presentation. So over to you, M.
Hello. I have no idea what you guys are seeing right now, as my screen is glitching out a lot.
Okay, we are
Currently.
seeing the presentation, but not in presenter view.
Well, that's slightly annoying. How about now?
Yes, perfect.
Sweet. Okay. Oh, hello. My name is M. Some of you might have heard from me before. I've been in 2 other of these workshop presentations, and I think I won't repeat all of the different things that Rikke said about me. You already know I'm a research assistant at Aarhus University, but I'm also a sitting member of the Youth Advisory Board. I joined that advisory board back in May 2014. So I've been on an advisory board for quite a few months now, and I think I'm happy to hear that the process of the youth advisory boards are going more smoothly at the other places. It took a while for us to like wind up and actually get one going here. As mentioned, I have a master's degree in aesthetics and culture, and I am have always been, and both like academically and privately interested in video game culture and particularly video game communities. And I have previously worked as a producer and a director, like coordinator, art director type person within video game production. And I think it's always worth mentioning that I'm 25 years old, soon to be 26, so I'm actually almost too old to be part of the youth advisory board. I'm also transgender. I have autism and PTSD, and of course, I have white privilege. I am middle class and able-bodied. I always think these things are important to mention to clarify the position from where you talk. In a way, it's just tradition from where I was schooled here at Aarhus University. So it's something I always incorporate into my presentations about myself. I think I will start out by talking a bit about why I joined the first game jam and also why I joined the Youth Advisory Board. I won't go too much into it. I've already done a presentation about this, but back when I joined the first jam in Aarhus, which was in February, I think, 2014, I had just finished my master's degree, and there was this overlap between video game culture and queer empowerment through game creation, through game culture, which also meant I had a lot of spare time. I had a bit of a crisis about having just finished and was looking for a job, and had a lot of spare time in that process, and also had just started to learn how to code. So I thought, a video game, like a game jam about culture, and which is appropriate for beginner creators to participate in, and it involves AROS. This sounds like the exact project for me. And I was then asked after the game jam, because I had a lot of feedback for it, I was asked to join this youth advisory board. And my initial thought was, well, good, at least I'll listen to the feedback. And I am happy to say I'm pleasantly surprised about how much inclusion there has been throughout both the game jams and the youth advisory board and the project as a whole. And I think maybe also to articulate one of the elephants in the room, I am in this weird position where I am both a youth advisor and I'm also hired on the project. I am paid by EPIC. I'm actually Rikke's research assistant on paper. And I think that creates a lot of weird insights and weird tensions, but mostly insights. I think a lot of the goals between the Youth Advisory Board and the project as a whole and the Aarhus Hub are very well aligned, but I think it's something that should be articulated. And it also gives me this unique insight as to both what is the Youth Advisory Board actually like, what do we talk about when we meet, and how is it facilitated, and what happens with all this information afterwards? How does the researchers get their hands on all the information and data that we give? How is this empowerment process organized once it's outside of the youth advisory boards? And I think I will start about, as youth empowerment seems to be the theme today, how we think about it in EPIC. And some of the things and topics I have noted down is it's always about a voice and cultural heritage and strengthen the ability to learn through play and the ability to form or define new cultural values. It's as previously mentioned, as Sabine also mentioned, is also about belonging and community. It's about maturing a sense of belonging. It's about maturing a sense of sensibility. A note I have put these in quotation marks, and I'll get around to that. It's a chance to imagine something new, and I think empowerment in Epic We is a very broad defined thing, in some ways even an ill-defined thing, but nevertheless something that is strived towards. And that brings the question, well, because technically youth is supposed to be an equal partner in this. What does an equal partner mean? Well, we could start by looking at who gets to answer this question. So far, it probably hasn't been us, the youth, who gets to define the goal of Epic We. There's a lot of these defining words and defining terms that are really predetermined before the youth got involved into this project. We have terms like EU values that are fundamental, empowerment, quality, cultural heritage, art. All these very firmly defined aspects were already in play before the Youth Advisory Board was established. In a way that is, well, it's not exactly empowerment, is it? As you might have noticed by now, Rikke usually tells me that my role in the project is to be annoying. I am to critique everything and help out, make this critique flourish and be actualized into action. But a lot of these things have not really been defined within the project by youth itself. And I think this is where the Youth Advisory Board comes into play. We can ask, why do we even do empowerment? Well, from an industry perspective, we can say that is to actualize, upgrade, or nurture like the ecosystem of up-and-coming artists. We can also say it's part of getting to know your audience, knowing who you're producing for. I would argue it's more about adding new knowledge and skills to your organization and your cultural hubs. And this is, of course, where I will focus my talk today. We can see youth as experts partners, or at least that's the idea that we can do that. We have the creative industry as a hub partner, which is a lot of practical hands-on knowledge. We have the cultural heritage institutions who has a lot of knowledge on cultural heritage. We have academic research and higher educations as part of the hub part. But what is the youth citizens, the youth advisory boards, unique positions of knowledge that we can add with? Well, let's zoom in a bit. We have lived knowledge of the dynamics of youth communities. We have lived knowledge of the present and contemporary issues. We have first-hand expertise on new technologies. As was mentioned earlier, we are chronically online for good and bad. We also have a lot of resistance to a lot of ideas. Researchers might think that those ideas are good, but a lot of times we have some feedback that contradicts it. We also have a certain form of agility and an expertise and ability to move beyond the established organizations. A lot of the hub partners are very big organizations, which means a lot of the processes are fairly slow in their operating, and therefore not very agile. If you want to, for example, put up a poster somewhere, you have to apply for it and do all sorts of procedures before you can do so, where an unorganized section within a hub is more agile and can just put up stickers everywhere on the street without actual consequence. So the question is, of course, how do we do youth empowerment? I think Sabine and your name escapes me, I'm sorry. But we have a lot of good, Andy, yes, thank you. Has a lot of good ideas here, especially the Vox Pop I find like an interesting aspect, especially because you let them define the questions as well. And I think this is the question that is left, because now we have established youth advisory boards. What do we do with them now? The easy question is, of course, we ask the youth, but the question is, how do we ask the youth? How do we include them? And there's a lot of methods in this, and I think this is also part of the project's role, is to research how can different ways of asking the youth their opinions and in gaining their information about different topics. This is about, the project is in a lot of ways just a method for asking. you can ask them by asking them to make a game that exemplifies it, or we can ask them in a Vox Populi, or we can do an interview, or we can do a table that creates a map out of the experiences that they have. And I think that is one of the most important roles in this project, at least in my personal opinion. Usually when we have these models that the project has, we have what I would call a quote-unquote quadruple helix model and a quadruple helix model. And in the first model, which is usually how it goes in these large EU-based project, is that we have a lot of partners and then they make something for someone. Usually it can be old people or like youth citizens or mentally challenged or queer individuals or queer communities, but it's usually something that a group of people make for another group of people, which is not actually the quadruple helix model. The quadruple helix model requires everyone to participate equally, to allow everyone to mobilize their knowledges and skills and expertises, which again, I think EPIC-WE actually does. Again, a reason why I joined the Youth Advisory Board was that this idea that we should be included on a similar level is very interesting to me and very exciting to me. And in the Aarhus hub, we had a similar to a lot of the other hubs. When we established our Youth Advisory Board, we got a whole lot of requests and questions and inputs, and also a whole lot of suggestions to how we might accommodate it. Some said we want to be more involved. Well, maybe we should do a weekly update to them. Some said we want a place to give input and ideas. Some suggest we could make a document. Some said we want to meet the other youth advisory groups. Well, maybe we should make a Discord for them. We have a lot of these initiatives that and ideas. Some of them are a bit more radical than others. Someone suggested that perhaps we should pay them to be youth advisory board members, which in a sense is wouldn't that be equal? Everyone else is paid. Why wouldn't they be? Others suggested that maybe we could see if we could do some certificate for the CV so that the participation is more encouraged and more equal, so they don't have to prioritize between participating in that or increasing or nurturing their portfolio. Some also suggested maybe we should just record all our meetings and make them public. So that we can have a lot of inclusion in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of these are very actionable. They just take a lot of time to do. Of these, we have done a few of them. The global Discord I am currently working on, alongside with Ash from the Hilversum Hub. We also in our hub, we also gave Youth Advisory Board a vote in which games to be picked out in the process and in the project, and highlight them as like good examples of cultural games. And also we are currently working on including them as direct actors in some of the documentations, actually giving them credit on a organizational level for their participation also in these talks as well. I think I think that's all I have as well. We have our youth advisory boards. Let's start to include them.
Perfect. And on time and on brand, I'm sure people will have questions. So as you gather your questions and comments, you can either post them in the chat. But again, I think we are a nice little community here, so you can also raise either your fleshy hand and I'll make a note for it, or your digital hand and I'll make a note for it and take the floor yourself. As you reflect on your most pressing questions, I would just again start to open the Q&A by saying thank you to all the presenters for very nice presentations. And perhaps start by asking Lorena, M, and Maria about what was particularly empowering to you in your experience of the EPIC-WE project. So in the context of Game Jams, which is the core activity of EPIC-WE, or joining a research innovation project such as an EU project in your hub, what was the most empowering to you so far, and in an unusual way perhaps? Or to achieve youth empowerment in games and culture, what would be most important that we did? So either like reflecting on your own experience of empowerment or your recommendations to people, projects doing something in games and culture. And whoever wants to go first, just kind of either go like this or unmute yourself. And yeah. And then the rest of us will think about all the things we want to ask you. Yes, thank you.
I think to me, a lot of effort has now been put into creating these youth advisory boards and to establish them. And I think the time now is actually to include them on an organizational level where it matters, where it's not just representation, but empowerment, which is very difficult to do. Just getting people to meet in our hub is difficult, and having a collective effort will probably be even more difficult. But I think having it have some impact within the organizations now, we already have established them as advisory board members on equal level as experts within the European Union. But I think that there's a big difference between being a hub partner and being on an advisory board for a project. And I think we need to equalize it as a hub partner a bit more.
Thank you, Em. So something like being invited on an equal footing as the rest of the project partners to participate in the capacity building, serve
Exactly.
on the advisory board, contribute and be co-authors on papers, have a say in how activities are run, and something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe even if they want to do papers, is papers the important part?
Yeah, or what is the important path to use is perhaps the right question. Thank you, Em. Maria, something to add to this?
Yeah, I was going to say something different. So more reflecting on how it's empowering me and not so much on what could be changed. So to me, so far, I feel like a significant member, and that I could be open about my opinions and thoughts, and also the capability of speaking up not only for myself but together for the youth. I think it's very significant and very empowering to me.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you.
And I think it's not only youth. I have a big experience of being asked about this and that as an academic staff member at different workshops at Aarhus University, and then experience that then we were included, but nobody really listened. And that's actually more damaging than not being included at all, I would say. So if you want to include youth, you know, you need to take care not to do more damage than good in that process.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Lorena, something to add as well?
Yes, I completely agree with Maria, and I'd also like to add that it is very special to me as well as someone who is half Brazilian to be participating, since I can bring another vision to the whole situation. And since it is a project that is mainly focused on European culture, it would be maybe expected that you would only accept people from Europe 100%, and that's not the case. And that is very exciting. And also it just shows that you are open to listening to different perspectives, which is really amazing. And I'd also like to add that I have seen also from previous calls that you have used artificial intelligence to make some of the pamphlets. And I believe that it would be really positive if some students or artists could also participate in the creation of the pamphlets as well. I myself am open to working on the pamphlets and make something creative and different, and with my own style, that I think that would bring even more of a unique style to the vision of the project. And I believe that would maybe be helpful and good.
Thank you, Lorena. And perhaps not even just nice, but also having the ethos of youth empowerment, that they also have a say in how things should look, perhaps also communicated. Now that we have the youth advisory boards again, in theory, we really want to, often hand over the power or empower. So the first question would be, is it up to us to empower you, or is it up to youth to say when they feel empowered? I think is like a really important question. And then, as perhaps you, Maria, pointed to, that for that you need this kind of space where you actually believe or have the courage to speak your mind or speak up and believe that you're listened to. And then I'm just trying to make a bow here between the three of you. And then if that is the case, then actually also seeing that carried out in life in some way or form, either by including or inviting youth to become part of the expression of Epic We. So it can be like the art material, it can be the communication. I know M will be running part of the Cultural Game Jam in Aarhus. That's also quite nerve-wracking for someone being, used to being in control. And I think that's really important part of the project, trying to relinquish control, but not just handing it over, as sometimes it's done, but collaborating. And if it's definitely not, just to follow up on M's point from the presentation, it's definitely not an equal partnership, but it's an aim to have something that is more equal than usual, perhaps, I think would be the thing here. I can see Belit has a comment question here in the chat, but before that, I wanted to pose a question for Sabine and Andy as well, and then I think everyone might have questions, and we'll open the floor. So Sabine and Andy, thank you also for your presentation and great insight into the Vox Pop that M also mentioned as something that made sense to use, which is nice. But I just wanted again to ask you your perspective. So looking into the Vox Pop and what came out of it, what did you say? Like, what was it useful as a method for leveraging reflections on youth empowerment from youth, and what would be some reflection that you noticed and took note of during the Vox Pop?
Yeah,
Yes,
Andy, do you want to start, or I can also, whatever. No, it doesn't matter. Okay, I'll briefly. I'm
Sorry,
not sure. Can you hear me?
I was in pause mode. Yeah, I mean that's basically, well, there's a couple of things I can comment about this, which I think about quite a lot. One is because of the structure of the Epic We project and how it was conceived, how it was written, it gives us the opportunity to iterate on those methods, right? Which is quite unique, actually. So we don't have to go with fixed methods, or we don't have to use established frameworks. We don't have to, we don't need that level of control, which is great. And it's also given us the possibility to look at something as, what I guess, not difficult, but I mean, when you talk about empowerment and how different people understand empowerment and what are the aspects of empowerment, how can we create methods which can give insights about these topics, which are so important for the project? And after every action that we do on this project, it's kind of like a eureka moment. And the amount of development that we've had to do is quite large, because we're contradicting ourselves all the time. We're getting insights which really, I mean, just for example, from what M was saying, these kind of insights we've kind of had through the Vox Pops a little bit, but I mean, we would need much more time to gain these kinds of insights through this method, and we would advocate for that. For example, in the next game jams, how can we increase the time that we have to do the Vox Pops, and it's just small things like this idea of how can we change the parameters of the project on the fly that M was mentioning. You know, these ideas which came pre-cooked, why are they so set in stone? Why can't we challenge those ideas about European values? You know, so these are the things that the Vox Pops has allowed us to have snapshot, tiny little ideas of, yeah, okay, there's something there, and we've had to now sort of think of ways that we can develop other methods or expand the Vox Pop method to try and make the most of those openings that we have. So what we have now is definitely potential there. And we would just like to have more opportunity to be able to explore what we can really do with it.
Yeah, can I very briefly add, Rikke, just a small example of how this played out? Because in the first game jam, and I think many, if not all of us, have at some point in their lives done a research sprint or a design sprint or a game jam or a hackathon or whatever. Basically, you do not want to be interrupted, maybe to eat or have more coffee or whatever whatever you're into. But so here we thought, okay, at some point we'll invite them to delegate somebody or two people, and then they'll do this interview. Of course, nobody wanted to, because they were like, no, but we have to finish this. We're in this zone of we're now playing and we're now creating. We don't want to interview ourselves. It makes no sense. However, day two, we found a good time slot, and we said, okay, maybe now is it a good time to go in and take a moment? And then we couldn't get them out of the room anymore because they were so much into it and happy to reflect. And it wasn't like, oh, these two people have to go. It was like, oh, we all want to come. Is that okay? Yes, of course, that's okay. Go into this room, interview within your group. And we noticed, okay, so we need to, it's not empowering to interrupt, right? It's not empowering to get people out of the flow. So there we were really working against the rhythm of the whole thing. So then we figured, okay, the next time, first of all, we don't have to be so strict about it needing to be an interview within one team. It can also be across teams, because you're in it together, right? Even though you're split up in teams or you're working in teams, it's a joint experience. Might be really nice to talk to people from another team. And also really finding out what would be a good rhythm for these things. So really, sometimes it's also about acknowledging the structure and the flow and the mood of the event in this case, and thinking, okay, if we do it this way, it can actually give them something, because everybody really appreciated the reflection once they had the sort of frame of mind to lean into that. And without feeling the pressure of, oh no, now we need to also speak on camera. We also offered the opportunity to not speak on camera, but just do the audio, which some teams really appreciated, that it was okay to not be filmed and be self-conscious about that or uncomfortable. So it's really about this being flexible. And I'm very happy then with the team we have on site, that it's possible to really jump into and adapt while at it. So I think we're now moving to the third iteration. And we're also continuously learning and tweaking and figuring out what should be stable and what should be flexible.
Thank you so much, Sabine and Andy, as well. And before moving to Billy, just a meta reflection again. So I think also what I hear from all of you is also the flexibility and having a fuzzy project description that allows some room for interpretation, also as we become wiser, like what we thought was empowerment is perhaps not empowering, what we thought might be disempowering is perhaps even empowering, and so on and so forth. So having a clear, good project description, of course, but with some fuzziness when it comes to methods, so they can evolve, with some fuzziness when it comes to the activities, so youth can be included. We could also perhaps have written a proposal that would make it not possible to do that, for example. And again, that leads me to Bailey's great question in the chat, because that was something we really discussed as well when it comes to youth empowerment. So initially, and that's also why it's called the Youth Advisory Boards in the Hub, was to actually have the Youth Advisory Board as its own Youth Advisory Board alongside the, I don't know, old advisory board, grown-ups advisory board, I don't know how that sounds. And we could hear kind of along the way, like, why not include youth at the same level as any other advisory board members? And that could be for and against, like if the youth has its own advisory board, its own forum, perhaps that would have been even more empowering, and then they came with their advisory as youth to us. Or is it more empowering to be actually here trying to really practice it, being an equal member of the advisory board. So perhaps just a short reflection from you, Maria, and Lorena, about that choice when it comes to youth empowerment. And then I can see Conceição has a hand, and we'll go to that. So who wants to take the lead? Yes, thank you, Em.
Yes, I think both can work. I think it's very much a question of how you organize it as well. I think from the fact that we don't even have a youth advisory board Discord yet, I think getting people to talk together and come with conclusive advice on something as broad as empowerment or how we want to do culture. I think that is a tough ask. And I think the method we have right now is an advisor from each hub from the youth. And I think that structure would probably have to be the way to go as well when it comes to if we were to have just a youth advisory board. And in a way, there is a good point in saying youth is a separate entity because we're not bound by the same organizational rules as some of the other advisory boards. We're also not paid, which none of the advisors on the advisory board are, but they probably have well-paying jobs as well. I think there are a lot of structures that and ways we could do it. I think the most pressing question is which one does the youth prefer?
And
I think I will.
Perhaps you were not even asked about that. That decision was perhaps made around you or for you, as the advisory board was not formed. But I think what is interesting here, and then I will ask Lorena or Maria if they have something to add, is also that then there's one from each hub, so that's 3 youth advisory members, which is you have each other at least, and you have some weight because you are actually 3 persons and not one, as some of the other advisory taking care of an area is. So you actually have quite some advisory power, at least I would say. Lorena, Maria, something to add? Yeah, Lorena, thank you.
I do agree with them when they say that we should have some kind of Discord or way of communicating with each other in a young way, let's say, since we're so connected with social media in general, and having this community where we can talk to each other and see each other's perspective in a more vulnerable way would be really interesting. But I do believe that the most important thing is being able to do things together with you as well. So the youth with you. And because I believe that some of the issues that we have is that most of the times we are separated from older people. So it is hard for them to relate to us and understand us. And also it is hard for us to understand them. And I do believe that it's better if it is all together so we can all see eye to eye and not have a big separation between us and having to create situations in which we try to understand each other. I believe that if we are talking to each other regularly, seeing each other's perspective, we can get on a more relatable level.
Thank you, Lorena. And just to add to that as well, so all the things we wouldn't have done and wouldn't have noticed if we hadn't included youth and keep on trying to include you more and more, however much it's possible due to the framing of the project. But one example from the Aarhus Hub would be that part of the project is also taking some of the games made by youth in the game jams and maturing one of those to a more kind of finished product. And suddenly it became like the Eureka moments you talked about, perhaps, and it was like, but of course we should invite the group of youth that made the concept and to be part of that maturing process and have a say about what they thought was important and what they would like to see, and not only from the project view. And that is going to be really interesting to see how that ends as well, to include youth also as not only as research partners, participating in the research with the Vox Pop and so on and so forth, as innovation partners, being actually the creators of the games, the cultural products, but also as game designers in the creative industry sectors, actually having like an impact in the cultural heritage with the games, the creative industries with the game maturation, and in the universities of higher education as research partner. I think, yeah, that's going to be super interesting. Oh, sorry, now I got caught away. Maria, anything to add? Otherwise, I will leave the floor to Conceição.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just a short. I agree with both of them. I think it's more beneficial to have union rather than separating us into different groups. I think more advantages and also solutions can come from both point of views from different people with different backgrounds. So yeah, I do believe together would be the best option.
Thank you so much, Maria. Yeah, and I think is it Sartre that said hell is other people, but sometimes I know said like, but sometimes then hell is really important because I don't want to be locked up with someone that is just like myself, no matter if it's age or culture or diversity. One of me is enough. I want people that are as different as possible, even though that it takes a lot of communication because we need to understand each other, but that's perhaps also part of empowered participation and looking into the world, perhaps more important than ever, I would say. Yes, sorry, Conceição.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for great presentations today. And I'm not so huge as I would like, but when I see the ballot question, I was thinking, and it was great that our youth answers it, but I'm thinking that maybe we can have both. And in our app, Inês Nunes is like M. Full-time youth. So maybe you can have Discord if you want just for you, and we also can have channels to discuss or certain meetings where, of course, you will be very useful at a local level or at a European level in the sense of the apps. Maybe not the existing management boards, because maybe we need to do a lot of stuff that sometimes we don't like, and we want to burden you with certain things. But what we are doing here in Ovidus was to start with Lorena, Maria, and other members of the advisory board with Inês, working on materials for youth, maybe to facilitate them with audiovisual material about the Carnation Revolution, these kind of things. And that's what Lorena said about maybe we can do the flyers, these kind of things. Yes, I agree. But as volunteers that you are, Lorena and Maria, we do not want to exploit, your goodwill. So we have people in the project. Is not here today, maybe. Aline, that are in charge of dissemination and communication. And I think it's a good idea that next time you are part of the solution. You can say, I don't think this is good, because this is for you or not, and we would like to give contribution. But okay, it was very good, and I know it's time to leave. So I don't know if Inês Nunes wants to say something about it.
I think they said it all. They did a very good presentations. I think the Discord challenge it's ongoing for like all the hubs. So I think perhaps in the future is going to be working. So we can do that. And also, like, obviously, like they both say, when we discussed as youth teams, they are dear to us. It makes a lot of good ideas and good solutions for youth, and I think that's very very good experience for all of us. That's a very good experience. So yes, that's basically it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Constance and Ines, and we are slowly wrapping up. Just a couple of reflections, and while I reflect, perhaps 3 keywords from each of the presenters that have the most potential for creating the most experience of being empowered. Let's keep it that broad. So just 3 keywords. You don't need like a full-on academic reflection here, but just like what should we take from this webinar, listening to each other, listening to ourselves, what would be key to create the most experience of being empowered, becoming empowered, whatever that means to you. And I was just reflecting on also taking, let's call it taking youth empowerment as serious as we can within the frame of the project, because the money are tight. For example, if we had to redo it, we would probably try to take the next logical step and also have the money set aside to include youth as an actual equal partner also on that dimension. That would be really also radical new and wonderful. But still, what can we do? We can include youth as advisory board members. We can include youth as equal speakers in our capacity building series. We can do expert interviews with youth and present them on our project website on equal footing with our other advisory board members. We can involve them or invite them to be authors of research papers, as I know is also ongoing, to become the ones that have a say in what games should be matured, what games are the good games, and what games are the less interesting games, and so on and so forth. So there's actually lots of things we can do. I think the difference between asking and exploiting is also key here. So I think giving youth the choice to say when they are exploited or not, and what they actually want to join or not, is also key. So they can say, oh, I don't have the time to do the flyer. I can say, oh, can I have my name on the flyer with like my logo? Then that would be brilliant, and I can showcase that and I can use that in my CV or research publication. So asking is not exploiting, I would say. Demanding is perhaps. So we should avoid demanding and requiring stuff, but perhaps inviting is nice. So summing up the 3 to 5 keywords from each and one of you, and I'll just go by name here, and then we'll find this up. And if you have something to join, to also add in from your perspective as participants here, please feel free to use the chat and plot in your keywords, like what would be most important here. But otherwise, we'll start with you, Andy, and then Lorena, and then Maria, Sabine, and Em, and then we'll shut down. Andy.
Thanks, Rikke. So for us, the learning is definitely boils down to reflexivity, transparency, and flexibility. That would be my 3 keywords.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy. And Lorena? You're muted, sorry.
I'm so sorry. So I'll probably say that sincerity and listening and teaching will probably be my 3 words.
Thank you, Lorena. And Maria?
So mine would be union, equality, and also open mind.
Thank you. And Sabine?
Yeah, I would say listening, learning together, and also giving space.
And Em?
I think I would say something like sincerity, dialogue, and actionability.
Great. And now I'm actually tearing up, so I think that's the perfect moment to end. Thank you for the powerful messages, for the great engagement, and I'm really hopeful that we will become some sort of more epic we. I know we will become a more epic we with you than without you, so I also think that's quite important. Hope to see you again in the next capacity building. We are nearing the end, so this is also making me tearing up because suddenly this will end, but we will have the videos on our Epic resource site where you can find them and so on and so forth. Have a brilliant day. Go and be epic or on epic. depending on what you want to do, perhaps you just want to sleep and be left alone. That's also a sort of important epicness these days, I would say. Have a brilliant afternoon. See you all on the flip side. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.